how do we become a past life detective, or what are some past life clues?
Go back to the games that you played when you were a kid. You can often get clues about who you were. Look at the clues and begin to start to explore your life. Some people are not visual. They're like, it's just black, it's just black. And I'm like, we have electric lights now, but in the past, half the time was dark, half the time was light. Be willing to use your imagination. Even if you don't see anything, know that you can still get results. What you do can have an impact on the world around you, even if they don't know what you're doing.
Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever felt repeating lessons or karma keeps chasing you down, then do we have the Past Lives, Present Miracles show for you. Today I'll be talking with Denise Linn, best-selling author, past life expert, and the author of a true genius book, Past Lives, Present Miracles. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about how to heal your past lives to create miracles in your life. That plus we'll talk about the bliss of cross-country skiing. Vows of poverty, the allure of drums, Chucky the cat, a disdain of shiny black boots, Toshiro Mifune, and what in the world communists who go to sex orgies and take drugs has to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Denise. Are you ready to shine?
Halfway. See, I thought you were talking about the interviews that were going to be immediately after mine. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. Right near the end, I thought, oh my gosh, he's talking about me. So I'm in a little bit of shock here.
Oh, we've got to have fun, Denise. Yes, yes, yes. And we pulled out a few true highlights or somethings to talk about. So please forgive me for asking this. Before we dive right into things, were you really shot and killed by a serial killer?
I was. It's actually appropriate to ask it because it's how I got into everything that I'm into now. Because when I was growing up, my parents were scientists, and there were four of us. I had two brothers and a sister, and we all wanted to be scientists, and my parents were atheists. So, you tend to believe what your parents believe. And so I thought, like my brothers and sisters, if you cannot prove something, it doesn't exist. We were all kind of atheists. But then we were living in Ohio, and I had a little motorbike, and I babysat forever to buy that motorbike. I loved it so much. And it was August, school was out, and I was just putting along in my little Honda 50 between the cornfields. And some guy was following me. I didn't know he was following me. And he came and he rammed into my motorbike, and on purpose. And it was obvious because he came alongside of me and then turned into me. And I'm like, what? I hadn't done anything to him. And I was following the rules. And I flew off my motorbike. I skidded across the road through the gravel. And I'm like, what happened? And I was laying there and I watched him turn around. I'm thinking, okay, he's coming back to help me. And when he comes back, he rolls down the window and pulls out a gun. Now, this was Ohio. I'm 17 years old, and people it wasn't like, East LA. I mean, this was like farming community, and I couldn't believe he was aiming a gun at me. And then it was like really slow motion. When you're in those traumatic times, everything seems to go so slow. And I heard this explosion, and he had shot me. And as I'm laying there, and I'm in tremendous amount of pain, I can't figure out, why did he shoot me? Why did he hit me? Why did he shoot me? I heard the door open and closed. And then I heard him walking on the gravel, that crunchy sound. And then I heard the sound of a zipper going down. And I looked up into his eyes, and he's aiming, he cocks the gun, and he's aiming the gun at me again. And this moment changed my life forever. You'd think it was the near-death experience, but it was this moment, even more than that, here's a guy who's just hit me, he's just shot me, and is going to shoot me again. And turns out he was a serial killer. He killed a lot of women. I'm the only one who survived. But in that moment, all I felt was compassion. Now, someone says, you were in shock, Denise. That wasn't compassion. But it felt like compassion. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was just present with this other human being. And it was just human to human, soul to soul. And I could feel how he really wanted to shoot me. I mean, I could identify him, right? And his arm is starting to shake, and it's just shaking like this internal battle is going on inside of him. And then his arm dropped, and he turned around and he left. To have that amount of compassion and presence. And trust me, there have been times when someone cuts me off in traffic, and I'm gonna get you, guy. Littler things create a bigger response. But in that moment, that to me is the power of being present with another human being. If only, given what's going on in the world, if only, leaders of different countries could come and just be present with each other, I think it would make a big difference. But I was eventually found, taken to the hospital. There was a point where the doctor said I died. I remember what happened. I remember leaving my body, entering into this incredible, beautiful place that I'd been before. So the place that I went to, what people call a near-death experience, was familiar. I felt like I was home. I knew I'd been there before. This life felt like the dream or the illusion. And the reason I'm mentioning this is what I experienced in those few moments really underlines everything that I have done in my life since that time. Even though there's a lot of different topics I've taught and studied, this is what underlies everything. In that place, there was no separation. What does that mean? It means that every single person who's ever been alive, every single person who is alive, they were there. We were there together. And you would think, whoa, that's a pretty crowded place. And here's what's weird. It was like there was individuality, but at the same time, there was oneness. I can't get this here. I can remember it, but I can't get it because you and I were separate. Even if we have a lot of love, we are separate.
But you weren't separate. With the gentleman who cocked the gun, you were him and he was you at that moment.
Isn't that interesting? So it was almost like I never even thought about that. It was almost like I was there before I was there. But that is such a valuable concept to understand. I can't conceive of it here because we are in the illusion of separation, but I remember being literally one with all things. There was also no time. I could not conceive of the past or the future, and I tried to, and I just couldn't. And there was, I guess, the most remarkable thing about that place was love, but it was different than the love we have here. Here, it's like there's still a separation. I love you, you love me, I love ice cream, I love pizza, but I'm separate from the ice cream and pizza and you and, my husband and the things I love, the people I love. There was no limitation to love. There was no scarcity of love. Sometimes you think, oh yeah, I better only give out this much because there's not that much to go around. That and spirit, creator, God, whatever you want to call it, it was everything and everywhere. And I did not want to come back. I was like, oh my God, I'm home. But I heard there was this river, and I knew if I could get across the river, I would never go back to my body. Yep. I'm halfway across the river. You're pretty amazing. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm getting roped. Now, I'm a Cherokee citizen of I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation.
I've spent a lot of time on the Navajo reservation.
Did you?
And so I know of rodeo well.
Did you? Yeah, my family was involved in the rodeo. My uncle was a bull rider and then worked for networks, being the rodeo expert, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And anyway, so a lot of rodeo. And as a kid, I got to be with my cousins. They'd practice their roping, and I got to be the cow because it said you're a girl. But anyway, it was the astral cord. But I thought I'd been roped, and I got dragged back into my body, hearing a voice say, there's some things you need to do. And the voice went on. The body I got back into was really damaged. I lost a kidney, a spleen, adrenaline gland, good part of my lung, part of my stomach, part of my intestines. a 6-inch tube replacing the aorta. A hole went through my spine. It's still there on the x-rays. You can see it. And I was told I would never have children. And I have a beautiful daughter. But something else happened when I came back. So they said, well, she's not going to live, or she'll be incapacitated for the short amount of life she has left. But something shifted. And this underlines everything I teach. I begin to see the world in a different way. I saw light around everything, around every plant, every tree, every person. Everything had emanating light, but also sound. I was pushed out in the wheelchair into the hospital lawn, and I heard this like, I don't know. And I looked and it was coming from the grasses. It's like the grasses were singing, and everything had sound and light. From that point, I wanted to understand. There was nobody in my little town who could tell me what was going on, especially my parents. But I eventually found that people in native cultures, that's not weird. There is light, there is sound around everything. And that began a journey to spend time in my own culture, the Cherokee Nation, but also in native cultures around the world. So that's a little bit of my background, how I got to where I am now.
Thank you. So many questions, and we're going to stay focused today on past lives. Now, I have had, this is no claim to fame, I've had 2 NDEs myself. After the first one, I started seeing light around everything. I never heard the cosmic sound, but I started seeing light. And at first, I can still remember staring at the pine trees in Boulder, Colorado. And like I'm seeing the, what do you call it? The spinning light going up. It's not straight, it's spinning. And I'm like, whoa. and I started being able to photograph all these different colors and prisms and things.
Wait, you could photograph them?
Oh, yes. There's a lot that you can actually see. And so like today, I got this thing from the Boulder Daily Camera. It says, does anybody want to submit artwork from the connection to nature? And in the decade or so that I lived there, I had all of these beautiful pictures because of that in the community centers and galleries and stuff because of the light that I was able to see. Now, I couldn't see all of the Tauruses or things going up into the sky, but your eyes have been attuned to something that is always there. My eyes have been, to a lesser extent, I believe, but they've been attuned to it as well. We are getting back to the original frequency, the frequency without the opacity. What is really there? What is really true? I want to take a slight curve in a different direction here. The concept of time, because we're going to go for everybody here. We're going to go into past lives and how they may be affecting you. But what's really interesting to me is, I guess I want to use the term divergent timelines, or it's almost opposite time. You remembered who you were before it happened. I'm coming back to this moment of pure love with this individual, which leads me to either what was the past life you experienced prior to this that allowed you to remember, or since time to me is stacked, time is not this linear thing, what was the future life you had already experienced where this had already taken place that you then remembered?
Whoa, there's a lot of questions in there. Let me start by saying that when he was aiming the gun at me the first time, the thought went through my head, if you're going to kill me, you're aiming too low. You need to aim a little higher to kill me. Now, where in the heck did that thought come from? After the event, and it's true because the doctor said, boy, if he would have aimed any higher, he would have killed you. So after that event, later in my life, I went back to understand the past life, because every person that we've had any kind of intense reaction with, either positive or negative, is someone, from my perspective, that we've known before in another time, another place. So I wanted to see, what was it with this guy? And I saw a life in China. And I was a man, and he was also male, and we lived in houses that were up on stilts, and I was fairly well-to-do and had a family, and I've never researched this. Sometimes you can research what you see in past lives and validate it. I've never needed to validate it. It was just interesting. And we would take our waste products, and there was a hole that we would put the human waste and the vegetable waste, whatever was waste, we'd put it through the hole. And every day, this guy was kind of an untouchable. And he would go around and pick up the waste from everybody. And no, he was, in that life I saw, he was very, very lonely. Nobody was kind to him. And for for us, not being kind to him, it was a small thing. For him, it was a huge thing. And I saw that in that moment, like him shooting me, I was just one of a whole lot of people. It was not a big thing to him. It was a huge thing to me. But seeing that life, I never felt resentful of him, even before I saw the life. And I thought, and people, I remember the doctor saying, "How could you not resent this guy who ran into you and then shot you?" And I said, "I don't know. I just don't." Well, when I saw the past life, I began to understand what the dynamics were. And that's one of the values of going back and discovering who you were, because you begin to understand and even forgive your present life and the people that have, victimized you, if you will.
Are we all affected by past lives?
I think we are. I mean, and not everyone has had a past life as a person. You might have had a past life as an animal. Now, that's not a very common belief in Western culture, but you will only be able to remember the past lives that there's some kind of resonance with this current life. And if you're not resonating with the animal kingdom, you're not going to remember those lives. And some people have even had lives like on other planets and other existence and other dimensions, but it's very rare they remember them because there's not a resonant connection. It's so different that they don't usually tap into those. Usually you tap into those lives that have challenges that you are currently facing in this life.
Thank you. And I definitely want to dive into that, but I like playing with the concept of time, and time is getting to me more and more squidgy, shall we say, lately. It's more compressed. Are we living multiple lives at the same time?
Let me use this for an example. And incidentally, probably everyone knows this, but time is a function of gravity. The farther away you get from the gravitational pull of the world, the longer time becomes. So there's a fluidity to time. But if you imagine you're in a perfectly spherical room, it's absolutely perfectly spherical. In the middle of the room is a mirror ball. The dancings back in the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And so there's all these little tiny mirrors. Now you are in this room, and the mirror ball is turning, and you can see these reflections. And here's two reflections. They're going around the room, and there's thousands of reflections. If you look at each of those reflections as a past life, they're all in the same room. And the distance between this one and this one, well, is this the past and this is the future? But they're all, or if you go around this way, could this be the past and the future? They are all coexisting at the same time inside from the same mirror ball. And if you go back to the source, there's no time in the source, and the source being spirit. Does that make sense? That's the best I can use to kind of explain. It's like they're not ahead, they're not behind, they're all right here now. But if you are standing on one of those little reflections, and you look, oh, that's the future because you see it ahead of you. Oh, that's the past because you see it behind you. But really, they're all emanating from the same source.
So a few things. It does make sense. It actually makes me think of, I can't call it recent anymore. 20 years ago, is it? The Matrix, where there are all these TV screens in a giant circle. And that's all of our lives. And that's all the Neos, past, present, and future. You said mirror ball, and it sounded like mirror ball. And I went and quickly Googled the definition mirror ball. And before I got the definition, I'm going, wait, I have a dear friend on the Tues reservation or Tues Pueblo by the name of Robert Mirabal. And I'm going, well, that's interesting because I know one of your teachers was from the Tues Pueblo as well. So I may not keep that in, but it was very interesting that you said that. And I'm like, wait a second.
Your mind is really fast. You must have been one of those high IQ whiz kids because you were really fast. That's not a bad thing. Are you hypervigilant too? So in addition to being fast, you're also kind of aware of everything going on around you?
Yes, except particularly lately, I got, and I don't know if there's a connection or not. I got hit by, well, it's interesting. On my wife's birthday this fall, I was riding my bicycle along, minding my own business, when an SUV slammed into me. And so I, had surgery, lucky to be alive myself. But I feel like I am less in my body now than before. I trip over things so much easier, and I'm not sure why that is. So I am very hypervigilant, but I seem to be missing a little bit of an element. But Well, you first, and then I'll. But this is a very interesting tangent, by the way.
Well, this may or may not help, but speaking of Taos, I was in Taos. I have a teacher called Dancing Feather, who's now in spirit, and he was really remarkable. And one day I was staying with some friends while I was down there, and one of their friends came, and he had been in an automobile accident and had rolled a few times, and he wasn't injured, but he couldn't think straight. He said, I'm not in my body. And he was just really, really spaced out. And I had the sense of this old Native American woman coming to me, and she said, lay on him. Now, I was a young woman. He was a young man. I'm married. And I'm like, I'm not going to lay on him. And she just said, you lay on him. I'm like, okay, you close your eyes. And I got up on my hands and knees. I was just like this far. And I just was on top of him. And all of a sudden, it was like he took a breath and everything sunk inside. And so I went to my teacher and he said, Denise, that is one of our methods. If someone falls down a cliff or hurts themselves, we would have the medicine man, they had a different word for it, but the medicine man or the medicine woman lay on top of them. And when they lay on top of them, it brings their soul back into their body. And if they don't, somehow their soul will be a little bit out of their body for a long time. So I don't know, get someone to lay on you.
I will volunteer my very pregnant wife. This will be very interesting. We will see what can come of this. So thank you. During interviews, I am not so much hypervigilant out here. There's a heart connection between the two of us if I am doing my job, and I am continuously radiating love and staying in this state. At the same time, there is a connection to spirit where I am listening very, very carefully. What I am trying not to do is listen to me. Because if I listen to me, then I am not present. It doesn't mean that things don't come in, but I am trying to be vigilant of this, vigilant of this. And that's predominantly where I try to be.
Excellent.
So, okay, let's go from this. You have an expression in your book, to relive is to relieve. Can most present-day blockages, most present-day wounds, or even patterns all be tracked back to a past life?
Yes and no. When I had a private practice, people would come to me, and we start by looking at your present life. I mean, the issue started somewhere, and sometimes where it started was in this life. So the first thing to examine is look at this life. What are the forces at play? Where have you made decisions that didn't empower you? But sometimes nothing shifts. And so at that point, I began to take people back into their early childhood. Sometimes our challenges today originated as children. We make decisions about who we are, what we deserve, what life is, when we don't have the filters that we do when we're adults. But sometimes the source isn't there. It's like mowing over dandelions. They'll keep popping back until you get to the roots. And at that point, that's the point to travel back into the past. And when you go back into the past, you can heal the challenge at its source, and usually and often heal it forever, because it's not just the recognition of where it started, but also you can shift it. I imagine a mountain, and out of the mountain is a spring. And the spring, the water's coming down, but all of a sudden it gets a big log jam in it. Going to therapy and, affirmations and tapping is all like getting heavy equipment in there and moving it and try to shift it. But you can go to the source of the spring and you just move a little stick or stone and the creek goes an entirely different way. You create a new timeline. That's what happens in past lives. And it's why I love it.
Beautiful. I want to talk today about different ways we can actually access that spring and reroute it ourselves. With that said, one of the things I found in the work with people is that oftentimes from the families we choose to the wounds we experience are all, I'm not sure if the word is residual or residue. They are all a repetition of an original wound that are reminding us of what we still get to clear or let go of.
From my perspective, that's absolutely accurate. we will, if you don't get it right, you get the same circumstance again. You don't get it right. And people say, oh, I want to clear it. It has to be cleared now. You know what? If you don't manage it, you're going to get it again. So it's not, and if it ain't one thing, it's another. So if you look at, like, people, remember a woman telling me she'd married 3 alcoholic husbands in a row. And she said, well, I didn't know they were alcoholic. Once, okay, it's, unfortunate. There's some dynamics there. Twice, maybe a coincidence, but 3 times, usually there's some kind of pattern, or someone who gets rejected over and over again, or someone who starts to get ahead and then they sabotage themselves. It happens again and again and again. Those are the kind of repeating cycles that you can tell what you need to work on, because it comes up again.
What do you say to someone who says, well, I'm thinking of my mentor who is my best man at 89 years young, and he transitioned at 93 and a half, but he said he married the same woman 3 times. What do you say to someone who says, it's just my karma and I can't change my karma?
That's a popular belief, but I have found that I've been teaching for 53 years now, and about 45 years of that time I've been doing past life regressions. I'm one of the few people in the world that successfully regresses up to 3,000 people at a time. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people doing live regressions. And what I've found is that you are not stuck with it. When you go back, you can literally change the past. And when you change the past, you create a whole new timeline. You are not stuck with your karma. A lot of people doing past life regressions think you're stuck. That's just the way it is. It's carved in stone. It is not. The future, of course, people say, well, that's malleable. But what most people don't understand is the past is malleable. And even if you are not changing the past, and I believe you can change the past, where does that pattern exist? Where does that past exist? It's in your memory. So you can go your memories are always changing anyway. So why not create memories that support and empower you rather than diminish and dismiss you?
So this takes me in two different directions at the same time. First off, I do past life regressions with large groups. You blew my mind. I have never tried to see if they have a same past life or came from the same village or had the same experience. That never occurred to me until I was reading your work today, Denise. So thank you. Secondly, isn't the imagination important or beautiful or amazing when it comes to past life regression work? Because people say, well, I just made it up. I wasn't that deep under. I made it up. It's not real.
I get people in those large groups. I get them into groups of 6, and I've done past life regressions in 25 countries, so I've done it all over the world. But what I find in those groups of 6, over and over and over again, they find each other. They will remember the exact same past life, but different roles. And these are people who've never met each other before. It's amazing. The most dramatic thing happened was there was a group of women who had all been pilgrims in the United States. I remember being sisters. Each one said, and they don't talk about the past life beforehand. Each one said, well, I was a sister and I was a pilgrim, but this man was in love with me, but I was young, so he had to marry my older sister, but he really loved me. And another woman says, well, there were 3 of us, and I was a middle sister, and my sisters were fighting. And the oldest one said, well, there was a man, but he was in love with me. They saw the same life, but then this is what was remarkable. They got into a fight during the seminar because the younger one said he really loved me, and the older one said, no, he loved me. And we had to pull them apart. They've never met each other. They're remembering the same life, and they're still mad about it. Isn't that amazing? But it always happens. People find each other. So the people that are in your life now, chances are they're people that you've known before. And I forgot what the second part of your question was. I remember there was.
Well, the second juicy part of the question was that if people have a past life regression. So my wife had a past life regression, and she's going, but it may not have been very deep. And it was kind of wild. The past life regression therapist fell asleep during it. A long story. We don't know what happened. A blinding light, fell asleep. And so my wife is going, so it must not have been real. It must have been my just making it up. And my opinion is, it doesn't matter whether it's real or not, or whether you think you made it up.
When people tell me their past life experiences, and I had a lot of people who've gone to the country, done research, and found themselves. Most lives you cannot do that, but it makes me look good. But I actually, in my core, don't care. What I do care about is results, and whether it's a quote unquote real, you could find yourself in history, past life, or whether it's what I call a soul drama. It comes out of your imagination. What I've found is you get the same results. You can get the same results. Maybe you have relationships that are always challenging. You can heal those. Maybe you've got some physical challenges that can be traced to a past life. To me, let's say you have a shoulder that you can't move because it's kind of frozen shoulder and the doctors can't do anything. I don't care whether you see a real past life and can move your arm or whether it's a soul drama. Those images deserve to be heard. And when you hear them, you find, I use that because there was a guy who stood up, he goes, in 20 years, I haven't been able to move my arm, and look, and everyone's clapping. But it happens all the time. And so it's less important about the realness of it and more important of just allowing those images to be heard or felt or experienced.
Thank you. I want to go in a minute into how we can do some past life regression work on our own. Couple questions before we do that. First off, do you ever have, and do people ever see past lives in the future?
Rarely. And it's only because we have history classes in school. We learn about history. We learn about the past. We are not in the culture that really focuses on the future. But there is the possibility of tuning into future lives. And it's fascinating. Some people it happens spontaneously too, and usually it's the future in this life that they are sensing or seeing. Very rarely do they see, and not that you couldn't, but it's just not a part of our mindset in Western culture. I know lives beyond this life, but it does happen. Again, it's rare.
Thank you. So, and then can we use past life regression to, for instance, overcome a block of abundance or even activate unknown talents, latent talents and abilities?
Yeah, let me talk about talents and abilities. I use past life regression to help people kind of really release blockages that have been really holding them back. But one of the really fun things I do with past lives is help people activate a talent or a quality or an ability that they once had. I had one guy, he'd never taken any music classes. He wasn't musical at all. He experienced a past life where he was a violinist or a violinist. I don't know how you say it. The way that I get people to activate those qualities is they actually, with their eyes closed, will move their body as if. So their eyes are closed, and this really anchors it into the body. So he's standing up in the big seminar, and he's doing this, and he's really feeling it. Now, what was amazing, after the event, he bought a violin, and his brother said, "Why'd you buy a violin? It was a used violin." He goes, "Well, because I used to be a violinist." And then he got a teacher, and his family's laughing because he's not musical. And the teacher was blown away at how fast he could pick it up. And I'm laughing because there were so many examples of people being able to activate qualities and abilities.
David the Ice Skater.
Yes, I'm going to tell you about that, but I want to tell you about this guy I'll tell you about David the Ice Skater. So my husband, you're good at skimming, aren't you? Like, whoa. But he's talking about, so my husband had a past life in the Netherlands, and he used to do a lot of skating. And in this life, he's California boy, he's beach boy. He'd never lived his whole life, went to college in California and lived in Hawaii, not a snow boy, not a nice boy, but he sees himself skating. So he says, you know what? I can do that. So we go to a skating rink. We lived in Seattle, and he buys, you hire the shoes, and he goes out on the ice, and he's doing twirls. He's skating backwards. This is a guy who never skated. And he's like, oh, he can do it. But then your body, those muscles were not used to being in those positions. So he turned and he sprained his leg and never went back and skated again. But for about half an hour, he's skating backwards. He's skating circles. And never having skated before, but he had activated that ability. And the reason why I'm laughing is I often watch people's eyes are closed in these big seminars, and they're acting out their quality or anchoring their quality in. And I see this guy over in the corner. I was in Sydney, and he's doing push-ups. And I'm thinking, oh, he must have been an athlete or something. I mean, he was really going for it. So during the break, I said, I was so curious what your quality was. And he went completely red. And he started to turn halfway around. And then in a low voice, he said, well, I was a great lover in that life. So he was activating this lover ability. So I never followed up to see how it went, but there's all different kinds of qualities you can activate in past lives.
On that note, before then we start doing some regression work, and I'm going red in the face on this one, but how do we become a past life detective, or what are some past life clues?
I have a book, Past Life, Present Miracles, and in that I have probably the most extensive questionnaire that you can have. So even if you don't go to a regressionist, even if you don't regress yourself, there's ways to find out who you were before. Now, one of the things that I tell people is to go back to the games that you played when you were a kid. You can often get clues about who you were. Like as a kid, I would go out in the woods by myself and I would pick little leaves and I would say I was making my medicine. I would taste them and then I would take them and I'd, get them and rub them into a little paste. Now, no one ever told me to take leaves and rub into a paste. And my parents say, what are you doing? I'm making medicine. Well, I've had many lifetimes as a native cultures. And one of the things you do, you go out, you take the leaves, you rub them together, you make your medicine. So what did you do as a child? What games did you play as a child, especially games that were unusual? I mean, that was an unusual kind of thing I did. That's often clues. And then you look at deja vu. Where have you felt comfortable? What country oh my God, I feel like I'm at home. Or I do not like it here. And there's no reason not to like it, but you just feel scared or you don't feel at ease. Or what kind of foods do you like? Or you look at things you like and things you don't like. What kind of clothing styles do you really like or you don't really like? People that you feel really comfortable with, people that you don't. Time periods that you are fascinated with. Time periods that you really don't want to even know anything about. All of those can be clues about who you were.
Even movies, or say samurai movies for that instance.
Yes. I lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for 2.5 years. And I also studied tea ceremony. It's Japanese tea ceremony. I studied ikebana. And I used to absolutely, completely love samurai movies. I mean, I watched during those years of probably every samurai movie, Zatoichi, I don't know if you know Zatoichi, the blind samurai. Anyway, and I studied Japanese culture in college. Those are kind of big clues that there was some kind of connection with Japan. And my husband said whenever he'd see me around Japanese people, he said, your whole body changes. He said, the way you hold your body changes because I step into that energy field. So things like that are pretty big clues. What kind of, what books are you fascinated? Some people, it's the Civil War. They want to read everything about the Civil War, everything about the Amazon, or everything about Egypt. Those are clues, usually.
Hi.
Hi.
Don't get me started on the Kyoto Gardens or I'll just start crying right away and I won't even begin to tell you why, but...
The Kyoto
Gardens.
The Kyoto Gardens.
So
okay.
there are many past lives, is my guess, that I was Japanese based on my teaching myself Japanese, being engaged to a Japanese girl, to all of a sudden everything changes about me when I'm around somebody who's Japanese. The mind flips. And so I know it, and I don't know why I can see myself in the gardens in Kyoto. It's kind of these royal imperial gardens. I can see myself there. And, okay, so I'm getting more information. I'll play with that later about, maybe I was a samurai. I don't know.
Isn't that interesting?
But it is interesting that we all have, like my wife and myself, we love and we feel we can breathe easiest at the top of a mountain. At high altitude, we feel we get more air. Clearly, there's something either Tibet or somewhere at the roof of the world. We all have these things. We all have these clues. So how do we try our own past life regression?
What I suggest to anybody is first start looking at all those clues. We're talking about, for both of us, it's Japanese. I taught shiatsu, Japanese shiatsu for years. That look at the clues and begin to start to explore your life. Then there's guided meditations. You can get them on YouTube. You can purchase them on Amazon. You can start doing that on your own to just close your eyes. The other thing you could do, even if you don't, because I always like to come up with solutions for people where they don't have to buy anything, is just before you go to bed, is close your eyes and become very, very relaxed and just put out the word. Say, I'm ready to experience a past life directly influencing me today. Now, most people don't remember their dreams because most dreams in dream laboratories, they say within 10 minutes, the dream is gone. 5 minutes, you get half a dream. 10 minutes, it's gone. So you just put a pen and paper next to your bed and just immediately, even before you start moving, start writing whatever you remember. As this becomes a habit more and more, as you direct, program, incubate your dreams for past life recall, you'll begin to get those images. Now, here's the secret. It's not enough to just get the images if you want to have changes in your life. So let's say you see yourself and you're living in poverty and you're begging, let's say on the cobbled streets of a small town in France, and you're just so hungry and it's cold. You see that image in the dream. So instead of like, oh my gosh, I starved to death, I was so hungry and cold, you go back into the dream. Imagine you're in the dream while you're in bed and change it. And you can change it in any way you want. You can have someone say, hey, would you like to come and work for me? I need someone with your skills. And then you take yourself to the end of that life in your visualization, in your imagination, and you begin to shift that inner pattern, especially for that person if they're having money problems or feeling rejected by others.
So we were talking about Kyoto Gardens a minute ago, and I had this flash of a samurai, and I don't know if I was impaled. My guess is I impaled myself.
Oh, God.
So which is why I'm like, well, okay, that's interesting. And I don't know if that's, quote, real or not. This again gets back to the idea of imagination. But I do know, this is fascinating. We're gonna play with my psyche. I had no plans on doing this, but okay, Spirit, thank you. One of my wounds that repeats is a feeling of, am I going to screw things up, ruin things, mess things up? That certainly could be a lifetime where I slayed myself. There's a term for it, but impaled
Seppuku. Yeah, it's seppuku.
Seppuku?
Seppuku, I think is what it's called. Yeah.
So in a lifetime where I committed seppuku would be certainly a starting point, an inception for repeating a pattern lifetime after lifetime, or being afraid. If you look at somebody and they're like really afraid of spiders or knives or who knows what, let's go back to some past lives. So you recognize that. You had a flash. I had an image. Where do I go now? Is it I rewrite my memory with a different outcome where I did not do that and I'm healed and I'm strong and I'm healthy? How do I play with this once it comes up to help me to let it go?
Okay, I'm going to answer that question, but before I do, let me ask you about in this life, are you a rule follower? Do you feel anxious if you are not following rules?
And as to answer in the way a beautiful interviewee answered earlier today, yes and no. I typically go to the beat of my own drum and get very nervous at the same time.
Okay. So are you a loyal person?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay. Because usually the qualities that go with someone who would kill themselves in that manner, a very ritualistic manner, in the Japanese culture would be someone who's very loyal to their head guy, and who also knows within that there is a structure and there are rules, and these are what you need to follow. And the number one quality would be loyalty. So that to me says there's a good chance this probably is a real past life. Then I'm going to tell you how to fix it.
Thank you. So let's say I'm coaching or teaching a class, and it's been a very busy day, and I cooked myself some food, and then I ran short of time to eat it before meeting with somebody. That's impolite. I could not do that. There is no way. That level of politeness.
Oh, you must be. Yeah, no. You cannot eat that food. You have to. Yeah, you cannot. Because that's the kind of very structured way of, it would be dishonoring. And honor For someone in that position in a past life, honor is more important than life. And to act in an honorable way, to be honorable. And there's a tendency for deep, deep shame if one is not acting honorably.
This is really cool. So if I go, well, I don't with COVID go to a movies. If I'm watching a movie, something of this sort, and there is a scene where somebody acts dishonorably, or the movie plot of holding a lie and then the lie goes to another lie, I'm either literally covering my eyes or I have to leave and I go, Pookie, you watch the movie. You tell me how it comes out. I cannot even watch this and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's probably that lack of honor and mostly the shame that goes with it. It's so debilitating. So here's how you shift that, and is you go back to that perceived event, and even if your mind says, "Well, I don't know if this is real," it's like just shut up, mind. Just imagine it. And I don't know if you know. You probably know about there's a whole ritualized way that samurais would kill themselves, But so you can either go to the point where you've prepared and you're about to, and then your domo or whoever your head is can come in and say, nope, don't need to. But you need, I would actually take it back before that, because if you get to the point where you feel dishonored, even if you're off the hook, you're not going to feel off the hook. And so you're going to sabotage yourself. So I would go back like a year before and make different decisions. And you can do that, or go back 10 years before, make different decisions, because sometimes you can just change it. Someone's running at you with a spear, you could change it to flowers, it changes everything. But for someone who gets to that place of that shame, that loyalty, that even if it's not fair, you would still do it. So to get to that point, you need to go back in time and change it. That's what I know. I was kind of reworking it in my head, because for most people, you can just change it in the moment. But for someone who's going to commit seppuku, you need to go back and shift it at an earlier time.
For all of us, then, we want to do some sort of a past life regression. In fact, there's steps. I know you have something, the sanctuary, transition from past to present, past life, resolving issues. Are there steps we can take to get back there, to see it, and then, just like you told me, to resolve it?
If someone, and you can get it used on Amazon, but if someone gets my book, Past Life, Present Miracles.
And I'm going to recommend everybody get it.
Well, sure, why not? It has a script in there, and you can actually record that script for yourself. You can play it before bed. You can play it, just don't play it while you're driving. And there is a transition where usually I have people go someplace where they feel safe. For some people, it's a log cabin. It's a meadow in the mountains. Some people, it's a crystal cave, wherever, crystal palace, wherever they feel safe, or the beach. And they transition from that. And usually I have a tunnel, but they can go in a time machine. They can go in a time elevator, the river of time. So they transition. And then once they get to the past lives, usually I suggest they see mists, because sometimes it's hard to get Hollywood and people are looking for Hollywood. But if there's mist and you can look down at your feet as the mist rises, then you go, oh, hey, you know what? I'm standing on some mosaic tile. And so they can have more of a sense of that life as the mist rises. And what I tell people, if some people are not visual, they're like, it's just black. And I'm like, we have electric lights now, but in the past, half the time was dark, half the time was light. Maybe you showed up at nighttime on a cloudy day. Maybe you were blind. Maybe you're in a cave. So be willing, feel around, be willing to use your imagination. And even if you don't see anything, know that you can still get results. And make sure you resolve it. And I like to have people leave that body, leave that life, go up to the spirit world and look on that life. What did I learn? What did I gain? To get that perspective. So those are some simple steps.
Thank you. Why do you feel it is that we transition home, and maybe we meet with a council of elders and we discuss this lifetime? Why do you feel, though, that our wounds aren't healed when we're back, that then when we're back, as if our soul...
What's with that? What is with that? I don't know. I will tell you this, though. Yeah, like, why do we have to be here? This is hard. This is really hard. That's so beautiful. But One of the things that I recognized is, and I never ever would have recognized this without the near-death experience, is the preciousness of our emotions here. That place is beautiful. It's loving. It's love. It's infinite love forever and ever. And if you went to a movie, that's maybe a way to talk about it, and it's a beautiful movie. It's very pastoral. There's forests and trees, and everybody's happy. You might go once, but you're not going to go again. Why? It's boring. But if you go to a movie and there's crashes and there's denouement and sadness and anger and resolution, you like that movie because there's this recognition. I mean, I would like to think, yeah, no, I just want the perfect. And some people say, oh, no, I just want the perfectly peaceful movie. Well, why don't movie makers make those? Because they don't make any money. So what we have here is we have the preciousness of our sadness, our anger, our bitterness, our forgiveness, our love. And that is missing. Not so much missing, but that for me wasn't what I experienced on the other side. So when I get into the thralls of life, and I do, I want to strangle that person or whatever, then I just think, wait a minute, this is kind of cool. I get to experience this. It's like a great orchestra with all these various notes, and the notes are our emotions, where in spirit realm, it's one perfectly F sharp. Beautiful, but no denouement, no crescendo. That's my take on it.
If we don't have valleys, there are no mountains.
Yeah, oh, that's good. I never heard that before. That's great.
From there, let's talk about body wisdom in past lives. What is our body trying to tell us, and what can we do about that?
From my perspective, every part of your body has a message for you. And it's simply going in, and usually in a deep meditation, going in and just asking that part of the body, what do you want me to know? What is there anything you want me to know? Sometimes I have people go in and imagine the guardian of the liver, the guardian of the kidney, to go in and talk to these guardians and say, do you have any information for me? And so many times I've heard people have healing experiences simply going in and getting into communication with the body and finding out, like, wow, I had no idea that I really don't like my job. Because their mind is like, everyone says, what a great job you have. What a great job. So your mind will think, I've got a great job. When you sink in, and usually it's the part of the body that's giving you trouble, is the part to start with. And that part of the body says, you know what? That job is not for you. Like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. So it's valuable to go in and actually have those conversations with the body.
You mentioned in your book, Past Life, Present Miracles, the idea, I believe it's for going before you set intention before a dream, an old Tibetan technique of a blue light at the back of your throat. Can you share that with us?
In order to program your dreams, there's a lot of different ways to do it. One Tibetan technique is as you're going to sleep, way at almost like at the base of your brain, the back of your throat, is to visualize a blue light. And in visualizing this blue light, you hold the intent, tonight I remember my dreams. Tonight I remember my dreams. What I think is remarkable about this ancient technique, and you'll find this in many ancient techniques, is there's a modern day scientific component. Because as you focus your brain on your attention on that part of your brain, that's actually where dreams originate. And science has shown that when you focus your awareness on any part of your body, you actually increase blood flow. A lot of people doing in sports know this, and they understand the power of focusing their attention on a certain part of their body. So this ancient technique of the blue light has a modern day, basis for it working. So I love that.
Oh, I love it too. And as someone who was a professional athlete for a long time, that visualization is perfect.
Were you? What kind of athlete were you?
I was a cyclist and a speed skater. And we both share a love for cross-country skiing that is beyond words.
Oh my gosh. Well, I heard, and maybe you did this, I heard that the cyclists they did research with cyclists because I guess, and I'm not a cyclist, but when you hold for a long period of time, the circulation cuts off so your hands can get really cold. They had in these labs, the cyclists visualize circulation going into their hands, and they were able to dramatically increase the temperature of their hands, which meant that they could go longer in the cycling without, I don't know, challenges or something. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. And they're both a cyclist and a skater, an ice skater.
I'm a speed skater.
Wow, that's so cool. You're the first speed skater I've ever met. That's great.
There's a Tibetan practice that I do not know called tumo, of working with your breath in order to raise your body temperature. And you can still find old Google images of me running barefoot in the shorts in snowstorms in Boulder, Colorado. When I met my wife, I would go wade out into glacial lakes to take photographs and visualize and bring that blood flow to other parts of my body and keep it warm in 32-degree water.
Wow. Okay, see, I would wonder if that didn't come from a past life. Potentially, the Tibetans, which are known for doing, going, what's it called? Their quality is how many wet blankets they can dry on their body.
Yeah, there is a monk we knew in Boulder, Lopong, I believe his name, which meant thin cloth, because he would do these exercises going out in the snow, and they'd put wet stuff on him, and the steam would come off, and he'd dry himself.
Right, dry him, yeah, right. And if a monk could do like 5 blankets or wet cloths, and he was like very revered, and so you were doing that. That's way cool.
All right, couple last things, and then we'll go do a meditation. What in the world is the ripple effect?
I don't know if this is exactly what you're talking about, but one of the things I've discovered when people do past life work is not only does it impact their life, but it's like there's this ripple that goes out and affects other people in really positive ways. I'll give you a quick example. I was once again in Australia, and a woman saw a past life where she was with her son. They were natives, I think in South America. I can't remember exactly, and they were digging for roots. These enemies came, and she knew that they were going to do something to her son. She thought rather than her son be captured by the enemies, she was going to kill him. So she took a tool that she was digging with, stabbed him. As the young boy saw this coming towards him, he started to scream. Now, she remembered that I said, change it. So she went, oh my God, Denise said, change it. So she went back a few days, made different choices. Then she saw herself growing to be an old woman. She saw her son growing. She saw a great relationship. Now, here's the ripple effect. In this life, she had a son who was the same son from that past life. Her mother was watching the son during the seminar that I was teaching. The son, I think he was about 7, was in one room, and the mother was in the other. The son never talked. He was mute. And in that moment, when she heard the scream in the visualization, her son actually screamed. Her mother ran in. Now, she had a really bad relationship with her son in this life. He let out this blood-curdling scream, and from that point forward, he began to talk, and it completely transformed their relationship. So she did the work. She shifted the pattern, and it rippled out and had this amazing effect on her son. She said it was a miracle. So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but that's what I look at when I look at the ripple effect, that what you do could have an impact on the world around you, even if they don't know what you're doing.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Last question before I ask where people can go to find your book. And I have a kitty who's decided on your behalf to start screaming at me right now, I think, to say, let's wind this thing down. Can we visit our younger selves?
Absolutely. And there's value in doing that, especially if your younger self had some challenges. So you can go back in your visualization, in your meditation, find that younger self and just say, you know what? You're going through a rough time now, but you're going to make it, or whatever you would say to that younger self, or invest in Amazon, or whatever you want to tell that younger self. Like, I believe in you and I love you and you're going to make it. And that can actually impact your present life by doing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Where can people go, Denise, to find out more, to find your books, to find your seminars, to find everything you have to offer?
Well, my website, deniselinn.com. Also, I'm on Facebook, and I read every Facebook post. So I love my Facebook peeps. I feel like we're family. I love that. So those are the best places to reach me.
Woohoo! Any last words of wisdom on past lives or past life regressions before I go get Rue?
No, I think we covered it.
All right. Hold on one second. Be right back.
Oh, aren't you gorgeous? Oh, what a beauty. Yeah, I'm a chicken person. Oh, that is one of the best combs I've ever seen. And I had some very beloved roosters, but I think you've nailed it. All right, let's jump into this
All
meditation.
right, hold on here. Let's sit down,
Mm,
Rue. You get your feet there, clear? All right.
all right, here we go. May the Creator within all things bring blessings and peace. Guides, guardians, angels, and chicken angels, we call upon you in this moment to bring blessings and peace. May the creative force within all things be with you this day and in the days ahead. As you take a deep breath and exhale, letting go and opening your heart to receive. Knowing that all is well. All is truly, truly well. From my heart to yours. May you have a blessed day, and thank you so much, Michael, for this interview.
Thank you, Denise. This has been so, so beautiful. So beautiful. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get past life present miracles, and begin healing your past, rewriting your past, and living your future today. And above and beyond all else, and Rue is dancing now, shine bright. Woohoo! What a beautiful interview I just had with Denise Linn on healing your past lives to live in the most amazing future and present. On that note, if you want to connect with your future self, if you want to connect with your past selves, then try the automatic writing experience. If you go to automaticwriting.com, we have live classes, a video-based program where we teach you how to literally speak with your future self, speak with your past self, and begin healing those past wounds. It's at automaticwriting.com. And of course, since you're listening to this, that means that you're a mystic, or at least a mystic in training. So come to our School of Mystics 4 Wednesdays each month at inspirenationuniversity.com so that we can bring out the mystic that's already inside of you. On that note, we're a podcast. Listen to us on iTunes, on Spotify, on wherever you find your podcast, and click that join button down below to join our Mystic Circle. Find out about behind-the-scenes videos, or get behind-the-scenes videos from Rue, from Jessica, from myself, soon to be from baby Hannah, plus meditations and all sorts of extra bonuses and teachings. How does it get any better than this? It's click the join button for the Mystic Circle down below. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of upcoming shows, YouTube premieres, and live events with me every Monday night. Here's a link to the next amazing video. Love you guys so, so much. Keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? Love you guys.